explains a lot.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Courier Journal's election night coverage and in our 8 o'clock cut-in. Hey, we are going to be talking with two more members of our political team, Joe Girth and Debbie Yetter, who are getting very excited about what they're seeing right now. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But we want you to also engage in this conversation. Please post your comments in our feed and we'll take care of those as well. But right now, let's go ahead and get straight to it. There has been one race called, winner for state treasurer.
Yeah, Allison Ball looks like she clearly won that race, beating challenger Michael Bowman by, about 61% to 39% of the votes from what we've seen in the totals. So that race has been called. The Attorney General's race is close behind it, but that has not been called yet. But Republican Daniel Cameron seems to be way ahead of Greg Stumbo, a former Attorney General at this point.
And you're both commenting quite a bit on what you're seeing happening across the state as far as the governor's race is concerned.
Right. What we're seeing right now happen is Andy Beshear is flipping some of the states that Jack Conway lost to Bevin 4 years ago.
Some of the counties, yeah.
Yes, some of the counties. And so in most of these are traditionally Democratic counties that have been performing Republican in recent years, such as Knott County, Boyd County, which is the home of Brady Industries if it's ever built, has gone for Andy Beshear rather than Matt Bevin. Scott County has gone for...
which is surprising. That's the home county of the Senate floor leader.
Yes, definitely.
Damon
Nicholas
Thayer.
County, Madison County, Breathitt County, Floyd County, all these have either gone or look like they're going Beshear's way. In northern Kentucky, Campbell County and Kenton County. Those are two of the counties I mentioned earlier to be on the watch for. The Democrats have been really excited about their possibilities in northern Kentucky, and they may be well on their way to taking two of the three counties in suburban Cincinnati.
That's a conservative section of the state, and it typically goes Republican, but it also has a big support among Tea Party Republicans up there, and the loss of Janine Hampton from Governor Bevin's ticket, I don't think really helped him in that area.
Right. Fayette County went huge, just monstrously for Beshear. 4 years ago, Jack Conway won by about 8,500 votes. This time, Beshear has won by about 36,000 at this point. It's still a few more votes to come in there, but we're looking at 36,000. In Jefferson County, about a third of the votes have come in, and Beshear has a 30,000 vote lead here. So if this keeps going like this, we're looking at a 90,000 vote majority out of Jefferson County, which puts Beshear in a pretty strong position at this point. It's by no means over with, though, because we're expecting western Kentucky counties to come in very heavily for Matt Bevin.
Well, we're 2 hours out from polls closing here in the Eastern time zone and 1 hour out from them closing in the Central time zone. So, we still are, it's not early on, but something that you mentioned in the 6 o'clock hour was that we're really comparing a lot of how Conway did when he ran against Bevin last time around.
Right.
So what you're seeing overall is...
Well, you're trying to look at the counties and see whether Beshear has established a bigger lead in those counties than Conway did, or won some counties that Bevin won. And it appears that he has established significant leads in some of the counties that Conway wasn't able to get, like Fayette, for example. We're still waiting on Jefferson. We only have 36% of the vote totals in for Jefferson. They're a little slow to come in, and so are Western Kentucky because they're an hour behind.
And 4 years ago, Conway won 14 counties. Bevin won 106. It's fairly certain now that Beshear will win more than Conway won. Whether it's going to be enough to push him over the top, that's still to be seen.
And we should mention some of the other races. It looks like Heather French Henry at last count was falling behind Republican Michael Adams in the Secretary of State race. Michael Harmon, the incumbent Republican, appears to be ahead in the auditor's race over Sherry Donahue. And Ryan Quarles, it looks like he's on his way to a second term as Agriculture Commissioner over George Conway.
Are there any surprises in there for the two of you?
Heather French Henry is not looking as strong as a lot of people suspected that she would. Mike Adams made a late push with some advertisements attacking her, and that could push him. to victory here. I think last we saw Heather Henry had a small lead, but again, Western Kentucky still has to come in. So we may be sitting here looking at a possibility where the only Republican to lose is the incumbent governor, if that plays out.
Pulls out. There's one other race of moderate interest in Western Kentucky for an open Supreme Court seat, and it looks like Whitney Westerfield, the state senator from Hopkinsville, is pretty much at a dead heat with Shay Nickel, the other. He's an appeals court judge who's running for that seat. It's pretty close, but again, very few precincts are reporting in. That's a Western Kentucky district, and they only have a few in.
And I just refreshed on the Jefferson County totals. Bashir now has a 60,000 vote lead with 65% of the vote in. So, so again, we're still on pace to see a Bashir victory in Jefferson County by 90,000 votes. That may start to make it difficult for Bevan
to make that up in the rest of the state.
Yeah.
I think did Bashir take Warren County and Bowling Green or? I can't remember.
While they're looking that up, I want to remind you that we're happy to take any of your comments or questions that you'd like to send our way, so you can post those right there in our feed,
leading.
and I'll get those over
Okay.
to
That's
our
only half
two
of the-
experts here. So another question I have, as you're looking for that, have you found it?
Yeah, we
Yes.
did.
Okay.
It looks like only about half the precincts are reporting in, and Bashir's ahead 54 to 44%.
Oh,
That's
so
a pretty conservative county, even though it is Democratic by registration and has in the past elected Democratic representatives.
in your opinion, what would a win by Andy Bashir mean for the Commonwealth?
What would mean a lot of immediate changes. He has pledged to reform the State Board of Education, which Governor Matt Bevin kind of established in his own image. He has talked about abolishing the changes to Medicaid that Governor Bevin has proposed and have been tied up in a court battle. And of course, it would mean a total change at the top of the administration. All the Bevin appointees would be replaced with appointees of Bashir's choosing.
And on the flip side?
I think you would see Bevin continuing to carry out his policies and initiatives, pushing forward. He would continue his effort to get the Medicaid changes in place and fighting that court fight. He would continue with the Board of Education the way it is, with his members and a commissioner I think he approves of. What else, Joe?
I'm sorry. I'm kind of.
That's all right. You're reading that.
His appointees would stay in place, I would assume, unless some of them have to leave for whatever reason. But cabinet secretaries, commissioners, and so forth would probably continue with some of the policies that he's launched in his first term.
Bashir has flipped McGoffin County, which went for Bevin 4 years ago.
That's far eastern Kentucky.
Far eastern Kentucky. And all these are counties around Floyd. That's a county near Floyd, butts up against Floyd County, where Greg Stumbo is from. And Stumbo being on the ticket probably earned some votes for Bashir in that county.
And it looks like AG has been called for Ryan Quarles.
Ag Commissioner?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not surprising. He had a pretty good lead there, I think. And he's been in that, he's served one term already. His challenger was not nearly as well known or well funded, and Quarles has really worked to get out around the state and meet folks by virtue of being Ag Commissioner. So I
Well
think
liked, well educated.
Yeah, got lots of degrees.
Yeah, and that's not surprising at all. Wouldn't surprise me to see him lead the ticket in votes by the end of the night.
I think Allison Ball might be the top vote getter at this point.
Yes.
with partial, but she had 315,000 when her race was called.
Now, since you're looking at a map right now, what counties are left out there that haven't? Is it too hard to tell?
It's
I wanted to ask you a really hard question.
Too hard to tell. There's a lot of counties that we're still waiting for numbers in, especially in the western half of the state.
Yeah.
But it's.
And some counties have 1 or 2 precincts reporting in. I mean, hardly any, and not enough to go on.
Yeah.
So we're looking at State Attorney General. What were the numbers on that?
I haven't seen the final numbers on that. Let's see if we can find that. Give me just a second. But
Yeah.
Cameron was well on his way to a comfortable lead over Greg Stumbo, if I can see what it was when the race was called. Well, this is still only partial reporting,
Yeah.
but it looks like he had almost 300,000 votes compared to Greg Stumbo with 224, with about 38% in. So he had a pretty 57-43% lead.
So, Joe, you were saying earlier when we were speaking that you had spent about 5 days touring around the state and talking to people in the community, and there was some apathy out there. So we don't know the total numbers of who voted, but your opinion was.
In some of those rural counties, out especially on the far edges, there didn't seem to be a lot of people who are all that interested and all that knowledgeable about the race. They were looking more at local issues and national issues rather than state issues. We still haven't seen where a lot of those counties come in this election at this point. So whether or not my gut feeling from just going around talking to people was accurate, we still don't know. What we do know, though, is that a lot of people are energized in Louisville and Lexington at this point.
You got a lot of voters.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen vote totals yet and percentages of turnout, but I think it's going to be pretty strong in those counties as well as Franklin County, which has a lot of state workers.
Are you ready for some questions from our wonderful viewers?
Let's go for it.
All right. Does the state treasurer matter?
Well, it matters. It's a good stepping stone to higher elected office, and it is constitutionally mandated. So there are certain duties that, and they can create sort of duties for themselves, like sort of financial literacy and education and that sort of thing. And I think Allison Ball's been out and about a lot working on those areas. And you kind of keep track of the state checkbook, but.
In a lot of states, that's an appointed position by the governor.
Like a cabinet level type job.
And is it needed? Probably not. It could probably be done by an appointed person. But both the parties tend to like that because it does give them kind of a way to farm.
Yeah, sure.
It's the bench.
Yeah, create a bench.
For
So,
candidates.
second part to this question, how does the Kentucky Constitution empower the Treasury to make decisions?
You got me. I'm not a constitutional expert on that. I just know the office itself is created by the Constitution. Beyond that, I'm not sure exactly how it delineates the duties.
Okay, so another question. I'm trying to read through these before I actually say them out loud, just to make sure that they're legitimate. Nationally, we've been seeing suburbs trend more Democratic and rural areas trend more Republican. For us non-Kentuckians, is that what we're seeing here?
To some degree, yes. I mean, we've seen Scott County, which 4 years ago went Republican, go Democratic. That's a county that is adjacent to Fayette County. We've seen Woodford County, another county adjacent to Fayette County, flip from Republican to Democrat in the last 4 years.
I think in the presidential race, weren't Jefferson and Fayette the only counties that didn't go for Donald Trump?
Yes. So.
All right.
So yeah, and I don't know what we're going to see in Louisville. Apparently, Oldham County, which is a very Republican county just north of Louisville, went for Bevan, but by a pretty small margin.
Interesting. All right. So, any last bits of any last numbers that are coming in? Anything that we can't live without until 9
Looks
o'clock?
like 90% of the votes are in Jefferson County now. Andy Beshear has jumped to 165,000 votes with Bevan 80,000, which means he's basically got double the votes Bevan did in Jefferson County.
An 85,000 vote lead at this point with 10% to come in.
Yeah.
So.
What do we remember? This is maybe not a fair question. Do we remember what Conway got?
Conway had about a 37,000 vote margin in Jefferson County. So this is significantly more than what
Beshear
Conway did in Jefferson.
Yeah.
He's got about 85,000.
What about over in Fayette?
Same.
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 Fayette, Conway won Fayette by about 8,500. He won tonight, or was winning tonight, last I saw, by about 36,000. So Beshear is getting huge margins out of the two biggest Democratic counties and two biggest counties as far as vote totals go.
And he's turning a lot of the smaller counties by a small margin, but that seems significant if Bevan won them 4 years ago.
Do you think having his dad go out into the rural communities helped?
There's no doubt that his father helped him in Western Kentucky. Steve Beshear, the former governor, is from Dawson Springs in Hopkins County. He is seen as not your East Coast liberal Democrat that the Republicans try to paint so many Democrats and tried to paint Andy Beshear as. And so having Steve Beshear, who's pretty middle of the road as far as politics go out and campaign for him. For Andy Beshear, I am certain is having some effect out there. Whether or not it allows Andy Beshear to win, again, that's yet to be seen. We still have a lot of counties and a lot of votes to be counted.
Speaking of counties, oh no, go ahead, Debbie.
Well, you still have the social issues. Matt Bevin has campaigned hard on his opposition to abortion, and as some of the commentators have noted tonight, social issues still carry a lot of weight in Western Kentucky, so that could still play into a factor in some of these votes that haven't come in yet.
So that is one of the questions. Are the counties remaining predominantly Republican or Democratic?
The counties are going to be mainly Republican. I mean,
Registered or voting?
Voting. I mean, registration, Democrats still lead, but voting, performance-wise, most of Kentucky is rural Republican voting. Andy Beshear doesn't need to win a majority of counties to win because he's got the two biggest ones in his pocket. Now it's just managing losses, I would say, throughout the rest of the state for him. Kenton County has come in 100% now, and we now see Andy Beshear having won Kenton County in northern Kentucky. That's a big thing for the Democrats. They were really excited about the possibilities up there in that part of the state.
And I'm just seeing this come in. Our new Attorney General is Daniel Cameron.
Yeah, I think they've called that for him. I think that's in the last
Or maybe
year.
you just said that.
I can't remember. I think
We've
thought he was on
been
track
saying
to
a
win
lot.
It. Oh, okay. But he was comfortably ahead of Stumbo when we last looked.
All
And
right.
he's the young attorney that was got the blessing of Mitch McConnell, Kentucky senior senator, and who helped bring in some money and support for him.
Any last words? I know we've got to get.
Well, the big question now is the governor's race.
Yes.
I think the others look like they're kind of falling into place, and it looks like it could be a Republican sweep of the constitutional offices, except again for the governor's race, which we have yet to find out the outcome on that one.
And how does that affect how a governor is able to do his job?
Well, he may, should Beshear win, I think he would have some obstacles. He's going to have Republicans in charge of the legislature, and he's going to have Republicans in charge of the other offices, constitutional offices. The Attorney General could be problematic, as he certainly has been problematic for Governor Bevin. He's sued him and challenged him on a number of his initiatives.
And one thing that may have made Republicans and more conservative Democrats feel comfortable voting for Beshear or not voting at all in this race is the fact they knew that the state House and Senate are controlled by controlled by Republicans, and they have all the power. It is very difficult for a governor to sustain a veto, because all it takes is 51% of the House and 51% of the Senate to override a veto in Kentucky. So the governor loses the governor's power mainly comes while the legislature is gone and while he is putting their laws into effect. But it's very hard for him to stop an opposition legislature from putting their laws into place.
And doing the budget.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it from our experts here. Yeah. All right. I'm going to be back with you again at 9 o'clock, I think, Joe.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
I'll be back.
I think.
I'll be here.
I'm going to pull you over here. I don't have to feed you pastries like I have to feed Philip Bailey, right? And Debbie, I know you've got a lot.
Pastries?
Well, I don't think there are pastries, but that's Philip's. Don't leave just yet. You're still on camera. But thanks so much for all of your insight into this. And we'll see you back here again at 9 o'clock. We want to let you know that starting tomorrow, another member of our political team, Joe Sanka, is going to be publishing a newsletter. It's called On Kentucky Politics. And all you have to do is absolutely free, is go to courierjournal.com and sign up for that. Here's a little bit more information. Thanks for watching.
Wherever you stand politically and whatever candidates you support, the Courier Journal wants to be your go-to source for all things political in Kentucky. That's why we're launching a weekly newsletter capturing the exclusive, the enterprising, the interesting, and the essential aspects of politics in the Commonwealth. Starting next week, On Kentucky Politics will provide a roundup of the most important events and stories for Kentucky's political scene, details and analysis you won't find anywhere else. Jam-packed with coverage from the entire Courier Journal political team, our newsletter will provide must-read links from our recent coverage, in addition to political nuggets or social media buzz that you may have missed. Head to courierjournal.com to sign up for the free On Kentucky Politics.